These really are the good days as the Kraken beat the Sabres. Sabres. Good thing no one's ever made that joke before. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R as the Seattle Kraken go into Buffalo after 4 days rest and beat the Sabres 5-2 as they continue to remain undefeated against the Sabres, the only team left in the NHL that they have not lost against. And actually, for that matter, after the Kraken beat the Lightning earlier on the season, the Sabres are the only team the Kraken haven't both won and lost against, as they are now 5-0 against this team. And of course, with the win, the Kraken also extend their winning streak to 7 straight games, which is now one off, tying the franchise high 8-game winning streak that they had around this same time last year, as they've now started 2024 off in a similar way that they started 2023 off. And of course, in so doing, extending their franchise record 11-game point streak. And the good news doesn't stop there for the Kraken, as they also, thanks in part to that extended rest that they've had over these last 4 days, get Jaden Schwartz back for the first time in a while, and boy did he have an impact on this game. And it's not just Schwartz that's returned for the Kraken, as although he didn't play in this game, they also have brought back Kraken Evans up to the NHL level, where I'm sure he will be seeing some more playing time here in the near future, especially over this extended 6-game road trip on the East Coast. Of course, part of that is because they did lose some defensive depth with waiving Jacob Magna, who was then claimed by the Chicago Blackhawks. And in the end, that's maybe not a bad thing for the Kraken, considering it does then free up the cap space that allows them to bring Kraken Evans back up to the NHL level. And yes, I still do think it's a bit of a bummer that Evans didn't get to be with the team for the Winter Classic and experience that incredible event that ended up being, but at the same time, he did get to play 4 very important games at the AHL level in the time that he missed the 2 at the NHL level. And I don't just mean important for his own development, but also important for the Firebirds, as those 4 games came against 2 of their in-division rivals who are right with them in that playoff race and for the lead of their division in the AHL. In the end, with Evans' help, going 3-1 in those 4 games. 4 games in which that Evans not only made a difference by being a part of the team, 2 against Calgary and then 2 against Abbotsford, but he also was a point-per-game player in those 4 with 4 assists. Anyway, to get back to Schwartz, who actually did play in this game for the Kraken against the Sabres, he jumps right back into the lineup on that second line, or honestly, I don't even know what the point of having numbers for these lines is anymore, but he jumps back into that line that we've been calling the second line with Wennberg as the center and then Tanev on the other side. So he ends up actually taking McCann's spot on that line, as McCann goes down to what was the 4th line, but now with that line having still Cartier as the center, but McCann and Burakovsky on either side of him, yeah, it's hard to really call that a 4th line, as it's your leading goal scorer and Burakovsky, who's one of your most talented forwards, and Cartier, who's pretty talented in his own right. Even with all that being said, though, and the good news of Schwartz coming back, how it makes this lineup look for the Kraken, even if it does mean that Yamamoto doesn't get to play with how good he's been for the team lately, and the fact that the Kraken had yet to lose to the Sabres, it still was a game that I was a little bit nervous coming into, being that this is a team that hasn't necessarily had a great track record in their 2.5-year history of playing particularly great after long breaks like the 4 days they just had off. Not to mention the 3 days they had off before that, so then just the 1 game the Kraken played in the last 8-day span, which was a fairly decisive victory against the Senators at home, but at the same time, that kind of large amount of rest can often serve to sort of even a team out, which can be a good thing if things aren't going particularly well, but when you're on a hot streak like the Kraken are, teams typically prefer to just keep in that rhythm and playing games on a regular basis. Unfortunately, the schedule just didn't really cooperate with them in that, so they did have that extra time and had to find a way to keep that momentum going through those days off, which, at least so far, it seems like they were able to do. And yes, I do realize these last 2 wins for the Kraken have come against the Senators and Sabres, both of which have been disappointing and struggling to this point in the season, but the Senators certainly are more talented than how they're playing at the very least, and the Sabres, even though they've had their struggles, had won 2 straight and done pretty well in those 2 games coming into this game against the Kraken. So it certainly was not a given that this was going to go Seattle's way as the game gets started. That having been said, as we do get into the game, the Kraken barely let the Sabres touch the puck for the first minute and a half, maybe even 2 minutes of the game. Unfortunately, once the Sabres do get control of the puck, they pretty much control it for the next 10 minutes. And eventually, about halfway through what was pretty much 10 consecutive minutes of straight Sabres pressure and shot after shot after shot on goal, many of which were pretty dangerous as the Kraken were sloppy defensively to start this game. Decord even coming up with a save on at least one breakaway and then a couple odd man rushes, so some big saves among them. It turns out to be one good chance too many, as actually the Kraken end up winning a faceoff in their end of the ice. Gord wins it clean straight back into the corner, but then Dunn and Larson kind of miscommunicate as to who's going to go get the puck. Neither of them get to it. The Sabres get to it first, get it out front to the high slot. Then it gets to the far side where all alone it's Skinner. He has all the time in the world to just outweight Decord. Eventually Decord, who's sliding across to get in position to make that save, has to try to regain his balance so he doesn't go completely out of the net, which then means his pad comes just enough off the ice for Skinner to slide it right through the 5-hole and into the back of the net to make it 1-0 Sabres. Thankfully, though, eventually, and when I say thankfully, I mean thankfully to Joey Decord, as he's really the only reason this stays a 1-goal game into the back half of the first period. But eventually, thanks to Joey Decord, the Kraken are able, in the back half of the first period, to really flip the ice right back the other way, and they pretty much carry the entire back half of this first period, eventually getting the shots on goal almost back to even. But while the Kraken did have a pretty big hole to climb out of when it came to those shots on goal, as midway through the period, I think it was at one point something like 4 shots for the Kraken to 15, 16, maybe even 17 for the Sabres. They, thanks to Joey Decord, only had the 1 goal hole to climb out of, and it didn't take them very long to get that back after they flipped momentum. And of course, it's who else but the Yanni Gord line out on the ice for the Kraken, as they continue to show off that tenacious forecheck that they really have started to get a reputation for, especially on this team. And they remain hot offensively as they get into the offensive end, create a turnover in the Buffalo end of the ice. It's Bjorkstrand who fires off the shot on net from kind of up by the blue line, at least above the faceoff circles, which that shot is saved pretty easily by Levi and net for the Sabres. But the rebound comes right out to Tolvanen, who fires off another shot, which again is saved by Levi as he's able to get back for that rebound chance. But the second rebound goes right out in front of the net where Yanni Gord has been waiting the whole time, and he's able to bank in that second rebound to get the Kraken on the board and tie things up midway through this first period. For Gord, it is still just his 7th on the season, but it is now his 3rd in the last 3 games as Tolvanen picks up his 15th assist and Bjorkstrand his 19th. And following the Gord game-tying goal, the Kraken are able to maintain that momentum and offensive zone pressure and eventually end up with a power play out of it late in this first period. However, that power play does not get off to a great start as they end up giving up about halfway through it, shorthanded breakaway chance for the Sabres, which Decord comes up with a massive save on. And that gets us to the second half of the power play where the Kraken are going to have to figure out how to do something when it comes to who's quarterbacking this power play, with Dunn having exited midway through this first period after blocking a shot in an area that probably wasn't as padded as some of the others. But wait, what's this? With 33 seconds left on the power play, Dunn's back out of the locker room onto the ice for the Kraken for his shift on the power play, getting the puck in the neutral zone, carrying it into the offensive end, getting that zone entry, and then dropping it off for the Kraken, who get set up. Even though Dunn's not really quarterbacking it anymore, he's actually down by the faceoff spot in usually the McCann or Beniers spot. The Kraken still pass it around the outside with no trouble, with Tolvanen up in that usual spot where Dunn would be. And as if it's just how they drew it up all along, it's Tolvanen down to Burakovsky on one side, Burakovsky one-touch pass from one faceoff dot to the far side to the other, where Dunn collects that pass and in one motion fires off the shot and buries it into the back of the net. Far side pass Levi to give the Kraken the power play goal and the 2-1 lead late here in the first period, which they would carry through the last few seconds into the first intermission. Unfortunately, however, it's a lead for the Kraken that would not last very long into the second period, as less than a minute in, 50 seconds to be exact, it's Alex Tuch who gets completely forgot about by the Kraken defense on the rush. The pass gets through to the far side where Tuch just puts his blade on the ice on the rush. It goes off his blade perfectly into the top corner past Decord, who really did everything he possibly could to stop this puck from going in. It's just an absolutely perfect redirect from Tuch that finds the back of the net to tie things at 2 here less than a minute into the second. But a minute and 18 seconds later, the Kraken say 2 can play that game as they get a rush chance the other way, started by Dumoulin actually in the Kraken end of the ice as he throws a puck through the neutral zone, which Tanev does have a chance to play by the Buffalo blue line, instead opting to play the man, which allows the puck then to slide through both he and that Buffalo player to Schwartz, who gets to it first in the offensive end. Schwartz doesn't one touch it, but quickly gets it to the other side of the offensive end for a wide open Alex Wennberg. Wennberg in alone, backhand to forehand, forehand to backhand it over the pad of Levi to give the Kraken the 3-2 lead. So Wennberg picks up his 6th goal of the season as Schwartz, in his first game back from injury, gets the primary assist and Dumoulin the secondary, though Tanev certainly should get at least an honorable assist on this goal if such a thing existed, even though he doesn't touch the puck. And then from there, the Kraken, now that they're back in the lead 3-2, I wouldn't necessarily say they slow the game down so much as they really start to play a much more controlled style of hockey and definitely do limit the rush chances up and down the ice back and forth that the two teams had kind of been exchanging to this point in the game. Certainly momentum had just been flipping back and forth so far to this point, but the Kraken with the lead are finally able to at least calm that part of the game down and not allow many more rush chances against Accord, who, to be fair to this point, had already faced at least one game's worth of rush chances and come up with a number of big saves on them. And sure, from this point forward, Buffalo does end up getting the majority of the remaining shots on goal in this game, but the Kraken, for the first time really in this game, get back to that style that they've had so much success with here over this last stretch of limiting all those shots to the outside and clogging up the middle of the ice, not allowing secondary chances, or pretty much just cleaning up the puck whenever it came down into that area off of a rebound, or clogging up passing lanes to not allow those cross-crease passes or cross-seam passes to get through. Meanwhile, at the other end of the ice, while the Kraken aren't getting as many chances or pucks to the net as the Sabres are, they still are getting their opportunities in the offensive end of the ice and a few shots off on goal here and there, and eventually, a little bit past the halfway point of the second period, it's one of those shots, a blast from Borgen up by the blue line that gets tipped not once, but twice on its way to the net. First by Tanev, second by Schwartz, and into the back of the net past Levi, who, I don't really know what he's supposed to do here. It gets redirected twice on its way to him, and that's just one too many for him to be able to track. It ends up past him. Schwartz with his 2nd point of the game, and a goal here now in his first game back as the Kraken take the multi-goal 4-2 lead. So Schwartz does pick up his, obviously, first goal in a while, but 9th of the season, as Tanev gets finally on the board with his just first assist of the game, but what could have been his second, it is his 2nd of the season, while Borgen picks up his 14th. Though for Borgen, it wouldn't be his last point of the game, as just a couple minutes later, he picks a puck out of the air, creating a turnover with his glove hand, drops it to his stick, and then gets a pass quickly across the blue line, or along the blue line, to Beniers entering the offensive end. Beniers just skates it right up to the net, fires off the shot, and buries it into the back of it to give the Kraken the 5th goal of the game, the 3-goal lead, and Beniers his first goal as well in a while, his 6th of the season, and the Kraken at that point pretty much have put this game away here late in the second period. Which, yes, I know might still be assuming a lot from a game that still has an entire third period left to play, plus a couple minutes left here in the second, but at the same time, I think at least Dahlin seemed to see this as a bit of a nail in the coffin for the Sabres as well, as when the goal goes in for Beniers, he skates around behind the net and just shatters his stick over the back of it. Not the first time he's done that in a game against the Kraken, though at least this time he kept his feet after breaking his stick over the net. And as it turns out, it would end up being the last goal of the game, as the Kraken get to this intermission, still up 5-2, and then the third period kinda just happens. Maybe that's a little oversimplifying it, but at the same time, not a lot happens in this third period. Yeah, the Sabres do get a power play in the first half of it, but it really doesn't go much of anywhere. And sure, Buffalo does pretty significantly outshoot the Kraken in this third period. That having been said, they are pretty much letting the Sabres have their way in the offensive end as long as they stick to the outside. Just playing that same style of, if you want to shoot the puck, go for it, but we're not going to give you anything dangerous. And anything that does make it through the Kraken defense, Decord is more than up to the task to keep out of the net. So eventually, 20 minutes just finds its way off the clock, and the Kraken skate away to their 7th straight victory, 5-2 over the Sabres. In the end then with this game for the Kraken, was it a perfect game for them? No, I definitely don't think it was. It was probably a 50-minute game for them. Those first 10 minutes definitely left something to be desired. Fortunately, Decord at least showed up on time while the rest of the team knocked off the rust from the 4-day break. And then they were able to respond and more than make up for it with how they played certainly the rest of the first period and that entirety of the second. Heck, even the third, although they don't score, they do play very sound defense in front of Decord to make that period a lot easier than certainly at least the first was. So yeah, maybe after the long break, they did get caught playing on their heels there for the start of the first period and right at the start of the second as well, but they were more than able to make up for it and ended up taking care of business, which is exactly what you'd like to see this team do against teams that are struggling like the Sabres have over the course of the season so far. And certainly is a good sign after what happened on the last extended road trip the Kraken had, that was really a majority of that terrible losing streak that they had right before this now 11-game point streak. As for the Kraken 3 stars in this one, which are brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon, again, if you do want to help decide these Kraken 3 stars after every one of the Kraken's games, you can help support the channel a little bit more than you already are by watching the video to this point, by going to the link down below to Patreon and helping support over there as well. With the first star in this one, for me at least, it has to be Jaden Schwartz, stepping right back into the lineup for the Kraken after that long time off, obviously recovering from an injury. He wasn't just sitting around doing nothing, but recovering from that injury, getting back for the Kraken, and stepping right back into things, making a huge difference in this game with the 2 points, the primary assist on Wennberg's goal, and then a goal of his own on that double deflect off the Borgen shot not long after. So for Schwartz, immediately making that difference, which is good to see. Obviously, it's great now that the Kraken are finally back healthy as a whole. Not that they wouldn't be able to survive an injury, as it does mean that now Yamamoto, who's been playing well for them, is sitting on the bench, but I kind of expect that they'll probably find a way to get Yamamoto into games, at least here and there, if not pretty frequently, kind of going a platoon type of way like they did last season with Donato and Sprong. Then with the second star, I mean, it might be getting boring at this point, but he just keeps playing incredibly well, and I don't think anybody's going to complain that he's here again. It's Joey Decord. Yeah, he didn't have to work too hard in the third period or even a good stretch of the second, but he is the reason the Kraken stayed in this game early on, as the Sabres were all over the Kraken for those first 10 minutes, and Decord does let in the one, but honestly, it seems like a minor miracle it was just the one goal that he lets in. So for Decord, a well-earned second star, he still does end up just letting in 2 goals on 38 shots, so his stats continue to look fantastic, as he is now both top 5 in goals against average per game and save percentage in the entire NHL. And then with the third star, I really could go any number of ways. Obviously, Beniers gets a goal, which we always love to see, plus he nearly got an assist, releasing Tatar on a breakaway. Borgen gets 2 assists, so 3 points between those 2 roommates. Obviously, they connect on Beniers' goal, and I really thought about giving it to Gord, but in the end, I'm maybe going to go off a little bit off the board here. It's one of the guys that was mentioned in Patreon. I'm going to end up going with Brandon Tanev. He only gets the 1 assist, but again, has kind of an honorary assist on the second one, and honestly just played a fantastic game for the Kraken, still very much earning his spot on what is kind of the second line, but again, the 4 Kraken lines are pretty interchangeable at this point. But with that said, I really would love to know what you think down in the comment section below as always, what you thought of this game, who your 3 stars would be, and how excited we are to have the Kraken finally back playing games after a rest that, at least for me, was kind of nice to have a little bit of a break for my voice and making videos late into the night every other night, but I'm definitely happy to have the Kraken back playing games, especially playing the way that they have been here of late. Until next time, though, on Thursday, as always, and I will be doing a stream here in the next few games sometime in this road trip. I haven't decided when, though, so be looking out for that. But aside from that, until next time, as always, if you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, the buttons for that kind of stuff down below to help support the channel. Like and subscribe, of course. I'd appreciate using them. And until then, stay safe out there, be good to each other. God bless, and go Kraken!